much. 8:21, again, containing COVID. Moving right along here. Let's get the superintendent of the Guam Department of Education, Jon Fernandez, on the line. Good morning, John.
Hi, Happy Chris. Happy Sabrina.
Hi.
Just, want to check in with you weekly. What's the latest with the Department of Education? God, that's such a loaded question, though.
Yeah, so I think every day we kind of reflect on all the things that have to get done, not just to support our community during this current crisis response, but looking ahead, we're thinking about recovery, trying to coordinate with our fellow agencies and the governor's office. I think our budget hearings are coming up for next year. And then, of course, working with our federal partners to ensure that we maximize and take advantage of the federal dollars that we know will be coming our way. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. We're meeting every day, even though we're not physically always in the office. We're meeting, all hours of the day and morning and night to try to get things done.
I remember when we had you on, was there some discussion about some of the schools maybe trying to do something different for graduation? I mean, I know you canceled all the graduations, but is there been any development on that?
Yeah, we did have a meeting with all the high school principals. Of course, encourage them first of all to make sure that they were working with the senior classes and their advisors to get a sense of what people wanted to do in lieu of a traditional ceremony. We also did an Instagram live meeting with seniors just to get their ideas too. So it looks like the information I hope will be finalized by the end of this week, and we can get it out to the public. But it looks like all of our high schools, as well as JP Torres Success Academy, are going to plan some type of drive-through graduation for their seniors. I believe it'll probably be coupled with some kind of virtual component, whether it's live streaming of the ceremony itself or just a separate kind of virtual ceremony, an acknowledgement of the students. So those details are coming together. They will have particular dates and time frames set aside, and we'll want to announce that to the community and let our folks know where they can go to maybe watch the ceremony online or otherwise congratulate our class of 2020.
What's the update on FB Leon Guerrero Middle School and testing that was conducted there? And
so,
it was shut down.
Right. So my understanding is that this week we'll complete the quarantine time. We don't have any. We're not aware of any positive outcomes due to the testing of the employees who were there. We did that as a matter of trying to be as cautious as possible. We did shut down the site in order to make sure that we could clean it adequately, and then also allow, even though there were no positive tests, there still was a quarantine period for those who may have come in contact with someone positive. So we just gave it the 2 weeks, and we'll make a decision shortly about whether we can reopen next week, depending on ensuring that the facilities are ready to go. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to inform the public as soon as we can make that announcement.
Mm-hmm. John, was there a decision that came down about the extension, of the grab-and-go meals? Because I know you guys have been trying to run it through the summer. I may have missed that.
So we're in active discussion with USDA, and really what it comes down to is that under the rules of the program and of the supports that we're providing, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is looking for assurance that there is continuing to be an educational component throughout the same period. So we're in the final stages of designing the summer school program, as well as continued distance learning that will definitely take us up to the beginning of the school year. So we don't see any obstacle, really. It's just a matter of getting that assurance to USDA, and basically what I'm waiting for is to finalize those details, announce it to the public, and that announcement in and of itself should satisfy the federal agency and allow us to get that official approval.
That's good.
But our intent is to try to continue this operation right up until the start of the scheduled school year.
What about I think I remember reading that GDOE was awarded I want to say over $40-50 million in federal grant money.
Right. So under the CARES Act, which is it's meant to support some of the this COVID-19 response, the Guam as a whole received $54 million in education funding, and around $12.5 million is kind of put in the governor's education fund, and the governor will determine how to use those funds. And then $41.5 million is going to Department of Education, that's a state education agency, to use for both public and non-public schools to support COVID-19 response and getting us ready for the next school year, given the focus on distance learning, mental health support, protective equipment, and so forth. So we just got off a call this morning with the program office to clarify the rules, the process for applying for and receiving the funds. What our plan right now is to spend the next week working with our stakeholders to get a handle on what the priorities are for the various partners that we have in our school system. That includes we've got the students conducting a survey of their peers. We're going to schedule an island-wide PTO meeting, working with the non-public schools as well as our administrators and other stakeholders. So our plan is to try to get as much input as possible and not really try to do this behind our closed doors. We want to make sure we get that input and people understand what the funds are for, so that when we put an application in, it's really clear as to what we're hoping to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So,
when you say non-public schools, are you talking about like reaching out to Juan Flores?
Correct. So
okay.
every year we get formula funds to US DOE that entitles our non-public schools to equitable services under those grants. So when we buy computers, we don't just buy them for our public schools. We also provide an allotment to the private schools, including our Catholic schools, including Harvest, St. John, St. Paul's, whichever the schools that want to participate. And so that'll be a similar case. And we know that everyone's kind of hurting due to this crisis. So we're hoping that we can get their input, factor that into our application, and then get the support and be able to monitor and ensure the effective use of those resources.
Mm-hmm. You said the governor's office, the governor gets $12 million from the funding that you guys receive. What is their guidelines on what she's supposed to spend it on?
Right. So the $12.5 million is above and beyond the $41.5. So it'll be a total of $54. So the $12.5 million, it's similar. It's to support education, but I think it's given a little bit broader flexibility. I think it goes all the way from childcare centers all the way up to colleges, to institutes of higher education, including the GCC and UOG potentially. So I've pledged to inform them as to how we are looking at allocating our funding, how we can coordinate the funds, and help them in their planning. But obviously, it's up to the governor as to how they want to deploy those education resources.
Well, so you don't just get the money in your GDOE account?
Actually, we will for the $41.5. That will go directly to the agency. But again, that comes through an application process.
I see.
Apparently, once US DOE gets the application, understands what the uses are for, gets all the assurances that will follow the rules, then they will, I think within 72 hours, possibly be able to approve and allow us to draw down those funds.
So how soon are you going to submit that application?
Well, we're hoping to spend the next several days, so into next week, meeting with our stakeholders and ensuring that we've reached out and gathered their input. And then I'm hoping that we could turn the application in by the end of next week or early the following week. And then within that 72 hours, it looks like a two to two and a half week process, hopefully, to get their approval and get the funds in the door.
So, okay, I wanted to switch subjects. What are you guys doing? What are you looking at for the upcoming school year if students are going to be returning to campus to maintain social distancing? Because if you have X amount of students in a class, say it's 30, how are you going to fit 30 students in a classroom while maintaining this 6 feet away from each other?
Right. So, obviously, we've got a recovery team in place that's going to work through these issues for us, and breaking out the.
I'm sorry, GDOE recovery team.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so.
Sorry, there's so many.
I know. We got our folks working on it, and as part of it, obviously we have sort of different issues that are priorities, but the number one issue is safety. And so, I think the safety committee and the operations, that have to, be conducted in order for us to open any of our facilities that comes first, and that will have an impact on everything else, including distance learning, how we allocate our personnel resources and so forth. So that's the committee that's got to move quickly, and they're moving to identify, what's needed in order to be able to get to a point where we can say we can open a facility at all. I mean, that's going to depend on the island-wide Peace Corps, status being at a point where we can open. But once we get to that point, it's not going to be like just flipping a switch and we're all of a sudden back to normal. Right now, we're looking at the social distancing requirements, and we are having our schools. The plan is to get our school administrators to kind of work through their facilities and understand what the capacity is at the classroom level, the cafeteria level, and so forth. If we're required to meet those social distancing requirements, definitely that's going to raise the issue of how we bring students into onto campus, and whether we need to have staggered schedules, staggered days, for them to physically show up. I mean, already that shows you that we're going to have some hybrid form of on campus and distance learning going on at the same time. So so for instance, if you're on campus on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but not on Tuesday and Thursday, we're not going to say you're off on Tuesday and Thursday. We want to make sure that we continue the teaching and learning components. And so we're kind of working through that and looking at what staggered schedules might look like. I think that the other components, we're going to need a lot of training for staff, teachers, administrators, before we even allow the first student to come back to school. So we need to budget time early on so that we can talk about safety protocols, talk about distance learning and how we are going to implement it, make sure everybody's on the same page before we even allow the first kid to show up. Personal protective equipment is really going to be one of the critical challenges. How do we ensure that every student and employee has adequate supply of personal protective equipment, and how do we source that? So we're going to move quickly right now to identify potential sources and let them know our needs so that we can get those resources in the door. So I could go on and on about the various components. The impact on teachers if they have to deal with a staggered schedule.
Wow.
Looking at all the equipment and accessibility issues related to distance learning, and then mental health supports and so forth. So there's a lot on the plate. But I think as we get further along, we'll be sharing it with the public and working with the governor's recovery team to coordinate to make sure we're on the same page.
Wait, so this recovery team you were referring to, this is the governor's education recovery team, or?
Yeah, no, it's I'm talking about, we have our own internal
recovery team. Okay.
Recovery team, and we're planning. Yeah, it's basically focused on our school operations and how do we even operate under a recovery scenario, because we're just a very complicated organization, lots of personnel, lots of facilities, and we've got to do all that planning down to the very finest detail in order for me to be assured that we can open up.
All right, so I guess we're going to need to keep in touch with you a little bit more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's picking up steam, and right now it's a matter of closing out the school year, but we're making that shift already and say, look, we've got the recovery discussions in place. So as we close out that school year, we're going to shift right away towards getting facilities ready in the event that we have to or are able to reopen, and then making sure that we work with everybody to adjust and modify our practices, because things are going to be different this school year.
Are we looking at mandating masks?
Well, again, like under this current, if you ask me
for
today,
students,
right. If you ask me today, everybody needs a mask,
right.
And I'm not gonna, we're not gonna be comfortable without that in place. So, looking at that, I mean, questions like whether we're going to have sufficient funds to provide. Yeah. Does the department have the funding to supply a mask to every student every day of the school year? Do we want to make it part of uniform policy and work with the vendors to have a cost-effective, option there? So as they, produce uniforms, they can at least throw in some masks. Those kinds of discussions, have to take place now, and so that's what we're working on.
Man, and John, I'm pretty sure if all our kids are getting free meals, I mean, the mask and being able to afford one, that's definitely going to be an issue, I think.
Right. So we're definitely going to have to think about that and how we can fill the gaps that are out there. And in addition to all of this, I was just laughing with the team. I said, it's not funny, but in addition to recovery, we're going to start hitting typhoon, season at some point.
Oh, Lord.
And how are we going to move into a sheltering operation under social distancing, right? I mean, there's like a lot of other things that we do that are going to be impacted. We are supporting the community through food supplies. We get commodities from USDA, and if you look at all the laws that have passed and are being contemplated, it looks like a lot of funding and resources will come through those programs to push food out into the community. So we're kind of thinking about how DOE can play a role in a more comprehensive food support plan, because we get all these commodities coming in and need to get them out. So we're working with Frank Blas's group that'll be out today, distributing food commodities at 3 different sites. There are other vendors who want to work with us to help us. So we'll keep letting the community know where they can come for food support.
John, you mentioned this briefly early on in our discussion about how you've got so many things up in the air, so many priorities right now, and one of them you said that you guys were preparing for budget, right? The GDOE budget.
Right.
How are you guys going to have to change the budget that you're presenting, because you guys have a big list of things that you're going to need, but the way it is now, from what I understand, there's a $1.5 million you're short from the Territorial Facilities Fund?
Well, we've had that in the past. I have to double check, because I understand we got some allotments and we got some funding from the TEF recently. But I would say that as we enter the budget discussions, there's going to be I don't know if you use the temptation is the right word, but there's going to be discussion about the federal funds that are coming in. Whether that will provide relief for the local budget because of the revenue situation being worse than projected, and we'll be a part of that discussion. I think in our discussion with USDOE this morning, we understood that as part of a condition of our getting the $41.5 million, there had to be a maintenance of effort on the local government side to provide at least the same level of funding that was provided in prior years for education. So I think on that note, I'm going to have to inform, the governor and legislature that that's a requirement for us to access the additional federal funds. But I understand there may be other funds coming down. I know there's this HEROES Act that's being looked at in Congress that might be able to provide, states and local governments some of the relief to address the shortfalls in revenue, and maybe that's a way in which, our governor and legislature can allocate those funds to make up for those shortfalls. When we go to our budget hearing, we're just going to say this is what we need. We're not really in a position to say that the revenues are going to be, here or there, because we're not in that business. That's someone else's role. But once they give us our budget, we'll have to make the adjustments, as we always do, to deal with our needs and maybe forego our wants. And maybe the federal funding coming in will help us address those extras that we don't usually get.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wow, there's a lot. I was just messaging Adriana like, hey, check this interview. There's like 58,000 stories in it.
Well, the other thing about it, even in recovery, we're talking about our internal team, but there's definitely a need for partnership. So I did reach out to Ricky Hernandez. I know he's heading up the governor's efforts, and let him know that we just, let's just stay coordinated, because I don't want the community to think that once we go to a PCOR 3 or PCOR 4, there's a switch that turns on and we're open already. We're going to have to talk about that gradual transition into an open school system. And I want to make sure, because we have such a large group of stakeholders, we don't want misinformation or rumors or other things going around about when school starts and who needs to report and how. So definitely I want to keep that coordination. Internally, we're working hard, but I just informed it. I mean, I talked to the team. I said, is DPW involved? Because I hadn't even thought of this, but if you're thinking about 6-foot distancing on a school bus, there's a whole set of implications there as to how we're going to get kids to school. Right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to work together and really coordinate closely.
I'm surprised you guys aren't working together like right now.
Well, I think right now we're going to allow the governor's health to address the health situation. I think PCOR 2 was meant for every agency to get their plan together, and so we definitely are going through that and every the finest details. And but we are staying coordinated, and I let them know that we're ready to meet when they're ready to kind of think about that transition into PCOR 3, so we can let them know what our plans are, and then ensure that there aren't any issues that remain. So
did he respond?
That'll happen soon.
Did he respond?
Oh yeah, we were on the phone, and no, he's well aware. I mean, he's a big supporter of our school system, has been in the past. Very well aware of our situation. So we have a good working relationship personally, and I know that when the time comes, he understands we're doing our work, and when it comes, he'll help pull together the necessary agencies to coordinate. So I don't have any fear about that. It's just a matter of us having a little bit more time to pull our part together, and then we can work with them.
Well, thanks, John, for that progress report.
Right. I felt like that was a state of education address.
Right. No, I think, again, as we close out the school year, I understand there's going to be a lot of questions now coming about what's next, what's happening, and we'll be prepared to provide more public updates as we get to that point. So this is just scratching the surface of what we're doing, and we're happy to follow up, and we can do something on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
Right.
As needed.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Appreciate it.
All right. No, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Wash your hands.
Take care.
Yeah, definitely. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
8:42. We'll take a little break, and coming back with more of Containing COVID right here on Guam's favorite, I-94.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.